Movement, peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. All right, folks. So, first of all, I'm in a beautiful setting yet again, right? I am actually in Highland Park in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, one of our favorite parks, right? And yeah, folks love to come here, do their park thing, and a lot of times, you'll see the groves and the pavilions filled up with folks having cookouts and just enjoying being outdoors and having a good time the whole night. Right, okay. I'm here now trying to take advantage of this last bit of daylight, and it's already, I believe, about 8 o'clock. And we still got a nice little chunk of daylight to work with, so I'm going to utilize that. And I wanted to talk briefly about controlling the flow of energy, external and internal technologies. All right. So we're all pretty familiar with external technologies, right? The manipulation of stone, metal, wood to form physical mechanisms, usually relying upon heat, usually created by fire, or electricity as a power source, one of those two, right? Of course, we know there's other forms of energy that we rely on, and there's many other forms of materials that we use to create physical mechanisms like plastics, etc. All right, so we have a pretty good grasp of what physical technologies are and how they've benefited us throughout our years on the planet, right? To be able to impact our surroundings in order to meet our needs, right? So, physical technologies, we're utilizing physical mechanisms, right, under some familiar power sources or typical power sources to manipulate, augment, or change our environment or utilize our environment in order to meet our needs, right? We're trying to accomplish something or get something done utilizing these physical mechanisms. That's an external physical technology. And like I said, we already are pretty familiar with all the things that we've been able to accomplish doing that, which is a great deal, right? Not poo-pooing on physical technologies. We have and are still currently using physical external technologies to do a great deal of things. But let's look at some internal technologies. What do you mean, King Sadiq? Okay. So, when I say internal technologies, I'm talking about the utilization of our ability as human beings to control the flow of energy in order to accomplish a specific task using some mechanism, right? Or accomplish a specific goal to get something done, right? Utilizing a mechanism. Well, what if that mechanism is energetic rather than physical, right? Okay. Which, if we get into metaphysics and quantum physics, we get to start talking about how even all physical things are energy, sort of, for lack of a long conversation, into all that, sort of slowed down to physical state. But anyway, what if we're referring to internal usage of our internal energies? We know that human beings are highly energetic beings, right? Even if we keep this as scientific as possible, which I don't like to stay boxed just in mainstream science. I do utilize mainstream science to help folks familiarize or become comfortable with some more less than mainstream ideas, right? But I also like to lean on quantum physics, metaphysics, and anything that helps us learn, right? So we talk about energy and our ability, or the fact that we have a great deal of energy within us. Not only the heat that our body produces, right? Which is highlighted in the Matrix movies, right? Where they talk about the BTUs that a human being produces. That's one form of energy. But also the fact that we operate and we are constantly giving off an electromagnetic field, right? And throughout history, throughout time, there have been individuals who have proven to have great ability with which to manipulate this electromagnetic field, right? And that shows up in things that we put some terminologies on, because we've seen this happen throughout time, throughout history, and individuals or groups having the ability to utilize some of these more abstract or more less than conventional means of accomplishing the control of flow of energy to get something done, right? Internal technologies. And what terminologies am I talking about we've put on this? Well, things like telekinesis, right? Being able to move or manipulate physical objects with one's mind or energetic presence. There's also telepathy, communication utilizing one's mind, right? Non-physical communication. You're not verbally speaking. And there are more, right? And we've applied not only terminology to these abilities or these internal technologies, but if you really check, right, do a little research, these things are not whimsical. This is not something you should laugh off, folks, just because we don't put them into practice on a daily basis, today at least, particularly in the Western society. But we, even in the Western society, have applied a great deal of research into these fields and these internal technologies. If you just check, the research is there. And human beings have shown prolific ability to utilize internal technologies to accomplish things. Now, I'm going to point to, first of all, the difference between a couple of structures, and then we'll talk about how those structures differ, right? So quickly, the Empire State Building and the Great Pyramid of Giza, right? The Great Pyramid of Giza, for those who may not be familiar, is a huge pyramid structure over in the east, in Egypt, or referred to more correctly probably as Kemet. And we're talking about huge monolithic stones. When I say that, I mean stones that are weighing tons, right? These are stones that even with the most modern construction equipment couldn't be moved great distances from any like far quarry or something like that. And certainly even with today's best equipment, construction equipment, and some of the best architectural minds, they still cannot offer a 100% verifiable, or even, close to that, explanation as to how the Great Pyramid of Giza was in fact constructed so many thousands of years ago. When you take a look at a huge structure that recent man has made, the Empire State Building. Certainly a great feat, right? A great structure, but compare the two, okay? The Pyramid of Giza weighs a lot more than the Empire State Building, right? I talked about the incredible weight of those megalithic stones. Certainly the Empire State Building is heavy, but not as heavy as the Great Pyramid of Giza. But over time, the Great Pyramid of Giza has depressed or sunken into the ground very little. We're talking about inches over, if I'm not mistaken, but it is certainly very little over thousands of years. Far less than the Empire State Building, which has only been erected a very, very, very small fraction of the time that the Great Pyramid of Giza has been, but yet has depressed or sunken into the ground some number of feet, right? Weighing a lot less and being erected infinitesimally, if that's a word, for a much shorter time, right? All right. So we're talking about either some very incredible physical technologies that were in utilization at that time in Kemet that surpass anything we have today, that for some reason we cannot find and have no actual record of. We have no evidence of this, right? So that has turned many folks to the thought that perhaps this incredible feat was accomplished by one of those incredible internal technologies of human beings. What if they utilized telekinesis to move these stones? Another very interesting fact about the Pyramid of Giza is that the stones at the top of the pyramid, some of them are older, or I forget how they explained it mechanically, right? When I was researching this, but essentially the carbon dating of the stones paints the picture that the Pyramid of Giza was actually built top down as opposed to from the bottom up. I won't focus a lot on that, but look into it. There's some interesting research out there about that. So there's a lot of things that point to an incredible technology, either a physical technology that has since disappeared from the earth and we have no evidence of, or there was some internal technology utilized that we in fact do have evidence of. Right? We do. We study these universities all across the United States and the world, in fact, study these abilities and these internal technologies. So I say that to say, folks, this is not a fanciful thing. This is merely something or an aspect of ourselves as human beings that we have underappreciated, right? And perhaps we should start to take a greater look at our intangible internal technologies, both that we've demonstrated throughout time and that we could potentially create now, right? If we were in fact able to accomplish an incredible feat like the constructing of the Great Pyramid of Giza, utilizing internal technologies, then perhaps we could accomplish even greater things. Now, if we rediscover how to utilize these abilities and apply them with the wealth of information and experience that we've gained throughout the millennia in relationship to constructing and doing other things, or means by which we utilize or apply technologies, controlling the flow of energy. Now, so far I've talked about internal technologies and external technologies in relationship to manipulating physical things, right? Because that's how we're most usually apt to thinking about technology, right? However, what if there are other or greater things that we can do in terms of internal technologies? So to delve into that a little bit, let's look into spirituality, right? So when we talk about your spiritual self, are we not in fact talking about your energetic self, right? Is there any evidence that our spiritual selves or our energetic selves possess ability or means by which to impact either the physical world, like we've talked about theoretically a little bit in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, or like has been observed scientifically throughout the years, other means by which our internal energies have been used to control the flow of energy to accomplish a specific task, to get something done or accomplish a specific goal, right? And we can look at spirituality and how it relates to our environment, right? And when I say our environment, I'm talking about the whole cosmos, right? But let's not be quite so expansive, and let's keep it to our environment here on the planet. There have been a lot of folks, rather groups of folks, right, throughout the years who have talked about man's ability to impact the planet spiritually, right? And we can be talking about the various tribal descriptions of this in quote-unquote medicine men, or different spiritual leaders, whether we're talking about Native American cultures, certainly many cultures in Kush or Africa, right, throughout the millennia have demonstrated incredible spiritual acumen, right? And we're talking about in ways that show up in our physical world, like impacting the weather, right? Take a look into what has been observed throughout the years about man's ability to impact the weather, right? I've talked previously about how we can energetically impact physical reality, right? Or spiritually impact physical reality. Examples given about plants and scientific studies done on how the energetic input of human beings affects plants and the way that they actually grow. So, if that's been scientifically proven, then we're talking about human beings controlling the flow of energy to impact the growth of plants. Folks, that's agriculture. Huh? We're talking about energetically manipulating your environment to impact the growth of plants. More directly, spewing energy into a plant by your energetic, by expression, pardon me, of your energetic intention, impacting that plant's growth. So we are using a non-physical means by which to control the flow of energy to impact something physically. In fact, to impact, again, the growth of a plant. That is us using internal spiritual technology applied agriculturally. Let's not think small. How important could that potentially be if we can, as human beings, energetically increase crop yields, right? If we can energetically alter the soil in a certain area, that it could become fertile, right? These are just some of the applications that we can think about if we utilize internal, non-physical means, internal technologies to control the flow of energy. All right. There have been experiments showing how a glass of water, they've taken 2 glasses of water and human beings have spewed energetic intent through words that they speak, not touching the water at all, physically, but through words that they speak to these glasses of water that are spewing energetic intent, right? 1 glass of water, you know, all these negative statements will be said out loud to the glass of water. You're worthless, you're nothing, you'll never amount to anything, you know, all that sort of stuff. The kind of things that we say to each other when we're being cruel, right? Oddly enough. And then the things that were said to the other glass of water were all very positive and uplifting, right? You're beautiful. You enhance the earth just by you being here and things of that nature. You flash freeze both of those glasses of water, and they find both of them have been transformed to ice, but yet they are vastly different. One has first of all, is a bit dark, right? And has very jagged ice formations, right? It's just sort of murky and a bit ugly, in fact. When the other glass of water is now ice that is very clear, right? Very, very crisp looking. If you look at it closely, they've even observed small, beautiful crystalline structures that look like snowflakes, folks. Not making this up. So the energy that the human being is spewing is impacting water in its formation of ice. Let's extrapolate that into technological application. We're talking about human beings affecting a body of water, no matter how small or large. That glass of water is a body of water. We're talking about human beings affecting the formation of ice in a body of water with their energetic intent. Think about the technological applications of that. What if we had a great number of human beings focus their energetic intent on a body of water and its formation of ice? We could potentially construct dwellings energetically in ice. Wow, that kind of sounds like Superman making the Fortress of Solitude. I didn't plan that. I didn't plan that. But a great example, potentially, of internal technologies at use. So all I'm saying, folks, is if we look at this open-mindedly, also, though, in the context of what we've learned scientifically, right? We see that it is, in fact, very viable for human beings to impact their surroundings physically or non-physically with their energetic intent, right? With non-physical technologies, with internal technologies. So once again, we're back to that theme, folks, of us not externalizing our power, but internalizing our power and utilizing what we have internally rather than limiting ourselves to what we can construct externally. Just keeping an open mind, folks. That's all. Keeping it an open mind. So, again, we have scientific confirmation that the basis, at least, of these two things I've proposed, and there can be a great deal more that we could talk about in terms of internal spiritual technologies or energetic technologies that we could, in fact, be utilizing potentially in a great number of ways. So I don't have all the answers, folks, but I certainly can bring up some things that we can question and look into further. And I think that that's something that's a direction that we should go, in my opinion, in terms of man's development and evolution naturally, right? Into how we can impact our environment to meet our needs, right? And perhaps utilization of some of those internal technologies that we certainly have a great deal more to learn about, but that we can learn about and potentially put into play. And we may already have a shining example of the great potential of that application of internal energetic or spiritual technologies right before us in the Pyramid of Giza. Not proven, I'm not making that claim, but it also is not proven and not been presented any viable or proven means by which the Great Pyramid of Giza was built utilizing physical or external technologies. So because of that, we cannot rule out internal energetic or spiritual technologies, right? So we could have a very shining example of how we can do great things utilizing internal energetic or spiritual technologies. All right, folks, I tried to make as best use of the light as possible. I hope we learned a little something together. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I love you all. Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. If you can still see me, Big King Sadiq. Out.